What's your name, sir? Little boy?
I'm not gonna say I'm not like gonna cry or anything, because I think that's kind of be a little overboard.
Such experiences tell us, sorry, this one is actually gonna make me a little emotional. I wanted to dive deeper into Victor Frankl's story. That line hit me more than probably many things have in my whole life.
Hey! What's up, guys? Hey, how's everybody doing today? Hey, can you guys bring it in tighter for me? Just because it's kind of a big space and the sound carries, so I can't really read the room. Yeah, that's what we like. Okay, sweet. This is great, guys. Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're recording, so you can just.
Okay, just to set some expectations on what we're going to do for the training today. This is probably going to be a tiny bit longer than a normal training that you guys will have here. But I only have, this is just I might only have 2 trainings with you guys the whole summer. Hopefully 4, maybe 6. But so I want to just make it really useful and valuable. The way I kind of like to do these trainings, I used to prepare really thoroughly and have like a slideshow and come in knowing exactly what I wanted to do. Now what I do is kind of prepare coming into it, but also try to just read based on my gauge from the leadership and from knocking with people kind of what you guys might need. And then I also assess that against what I'm seeing in the rest of the organization and all the other, we've got like 8 total entities of directors of sales and sales offices, and so I kind of just check that against what we're going through in the company, and then also my 10 years of experience of like what's happening right now, which if I only went off of that, I'd know exactly what everybody would need. So whose first day is it today? Like you're knocking doors for the first time today? Anyone? Okay, who's in? Are you sure? What's your name, sir? Little boy? You look like you haven't sold pest control a day in your life. Okay, so who's in training right now then, doing the whatever that is that we're supposed to be doing? Okay, sweet. All right. I want to go around the room. Well, sorry, let me finish setting expectations, what I want to do here. So a couple things that have been on my mind are I'm going to tie in some personal development with what it means to get really good at sales, so I can give you a framework for how to do that this year. And if you go do that, this will be the difference between a 200 level summer. If you guys just go knock all the doors and you have a smile on your face and you don't know what to say and you're yourself, you can trip over 2 sales a day easily. And who's sold 2? Who has not sold 2 yet in one day? Yeah, you guys are probably like, yeah, that's crazy. I know you're just saying that so you keep us out here and so that our managers can make money off of us. No, that's not true. You could literally, if you go around and all summer and you just smile, you have a good attitude, and you knock all the doors, and you're yourself, 2 people a day on average will buy pest control from you. If that's not happening, usually it's because you're either trying too hard and you're not sounding like yourself, and so people just don't trust you. They think you're lying to them from the get-go. So like if every door that I knock, I sound like this, like, hey, how you doing today? And my name's Hayden. I'm here with Moxie. And I'm trying to be nice. People will just hate you. If you want people to get pissed at you all summer, just try to be nice to them. But if you're yourself and you're happy, even a slightly unconfident version of yourself that's happy is going to sell at least 2 accounts a day. So that's what I want you guys to be focusing on, at least at the very beginning, if this is your first time selling. But that applies to everything else that you do. So as you go through the script and you start learning the script, then you're going to see a dip in sales. Typically what happens is people get out on the doors, like who sold 2 yesterday, their first day? Right? This is your first day knocking? And what did Cole tell you to do? The main objective yesterday was what? Knock 200 doors, right? That's how. Do you know how many you knocked?
Probably like 20 or less. He was cruising. They had permits most.
Okay.
So he didn't even get any time on the doors.
But you just went and pounded the doors as much as you could for the time that you had, at least, right? And you ended up selling 2 accounts. Cole was texting me while you were getting sales, and it was like, "This is awesome." He doesn't even know the script, and he's like closing these guys. What was it? What was the thing you had to ask?
I was like, yeah, I said, is it, we do the inside too.
Do we treat the inside as well? You're like, I think so, maybe. Yeah. So, but that's a prime example. Is like you probably thought you got lucky with those 2 sales, right? Not the case. They bought from you. So like you actually, you were so good at being yourself that people bought from you in spite of you not knowing if they treat the inside of the house. That's crazy. Well, also that's reassuring because like that doesn't mean that you just go out and sales are random. People buy because of who you are first and foremost, and then you can layer skills on top of that, which will make it so that you increase your effectiveness like by quite a bit. Do you guys watch fights in here? Who watches the UFC? Okay, who knows who Dustin Poirier is? Yeah? Bad mother, dude. Dustin's awesome. I'd love to be friends with Dustin someday. But he did an interview with Ed Milet, and one of the things he said that I found fascinating with Ed Milet was, so Ed was asking him, like, what do you do when you get into the octagon? Like, what's your mindset? And he says, I accept what the outcome is as soon as I step into the octagon so that I can be fully present. Think about that. So, like, once you're out in the field, the time for you to prepare for that day is gone. So it doesn't even matter if you're not good enough because we already established that you're at least good enough to get 2 a day, right? And if you sell 200 accounts in the summer, like if we averaged an office average of 200 accounts, the best team that I ever had averaged 276 accounts with 15 total reps that stayed out the entire summer. Many of you guys were in this office actually when we did that. And there were tons of adverse conditions that most people would use as excuses to not sell very well, but we averaged 276 accounts per rep. I actually don't think that that's very good compared to what, if I could rewind my whole career and have like a pure mindset the whole time, like objective, what do I want as a team to do its best summer, 276 accounts would not be that much, I don't think. And so, I mean, that's 2.76 accounts serviced per day, and I'm telling you that you just have to be happy and walk around and knock the doors and you'll sell 2 a day. So that's really not that much, but is 276 accounts per rep an impressive average as a team? I don't know anybody else that has done that. And even like as I do some inside research with people in our industry, like the Grit, they don't even have teams doing that on average. They might have one guy pull the average up, but typically not more than that. So what I'm saying is like it's not actually hard to go do that. What is hard though? It's hard to learn how to manage yourself and to actually go do the work day in and day out. And so for me, this becomes more of a game that's like not just sales, it's actually about you and changing you to be the type of person who can go and do the hard thing every day, which sometimes the easiest thing to do is actually the hardest thing to do, which is just like get out and knock the doors and stop worrying about it, right? And just be yourself, be happy, have a good time. Anyway, so let me get back to what Dustin was saying. It's like I accept the outcomes as soon as I step into the ring. It's like when you get out in the field today and you guys go knock, for those who's all going to be knocking doors today? That's not doing, okay, so pretty much everyone almost, except for a couple that have got training still, right? All right. So like the outcome, just accept that the outcome already happened because nothing you can do is going to make you any better for today. In fact, if you try to be better today than you're actually capable of being, you're just going to perform worse. So all you can do is go out and just be yourself, be happy, do what you know how to do, and just push people as far as you can push them without being unethical. I'd rather have people push hard than be too soft and too nice. Because I can teach people how to be nice and manage the doors well, but I can't teach someone how to be like tenacious towards their goals. That's like really difficult. So, but the outcome already happened. And the thing is like you guys are probably a lot better than you're going to be giving yourself credit for or than you think you are. And a lot of you guys that have big goals, I know a couple of you have really big goals in this room. It's like it's counterproductive to try harder than you need to. All you have to do is go out on the doors and work hard and stop caring about the results in any given moment because the results already happened based on your preparation. So if you want to increase the results tomorrow, just work harder today after the doors are over. If you want to increase the results from 2 weeks from now, just get really good at role playing and simulating sales at night, and then when you get out on the doors, stop worrying about it. It's like go out and have some fun and like actually enjoy talking to people. Remember, we were knocking yesterday, Sean and I was like, man, I miss this so much. I can't even tell you guys how much I miss. It like makes me feel, I'm not gonna say I'm like gonna cry or anything because I think that'd kind of be a little overboard, but it makes me feel like I don't know, just like I just miss talking to people every day in this setting because once you learn how to sell well and like you're not getting anybody mad at you, I mean, I used to get the cops called on me all the time when I was my first summer. In fact, there's a correlation between how well I sold and how much the cops were called on me. So like the more you sell, the better you sell, like the less the cops get called on you because you're just better at like not pissing everyone off. But I had to learn how to do that, and there's no path to learn how to do that except for to be as tenacious as possible towards your goals. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. I don't want to dwell on that a ton. But yeah, that's just a little tidbit of kind of mindset I wanted to get out first, is like, you accept the outcomes because you're already what you are right now, and nothing's going to change that in 5 minutes. But what is going to change the outcomes today to make them what you're capable of is just by relaxing and going and having fun and doing your best and stop worrying about it. Okay, so that's I want to lay a framework for, I'm going to talk about personal development for just a second, because it's going to segue into how I would like you guys to view the script and getting really good, like becoming actual experts in this game of sales. And I'm not talking about becoming expert door-to-door salesmen, because many of you are only going to do this, maybe you do this 1 summer, 2, 5, maybe you're like me and a little crazy and you do it 10. And you turn it into a multi-million-dollar career if you want, which is possible for anyone. But I just know most people will probably not do that. So what are you trying to become experts in? You're trying to become experts in communication, in persuasion and influence. And so what I want to talk about is a framework to get good, really good at anything, but particularly right now, persuasion and influence, okay? So does anybody recognize these words, these top 3? Dependence, independence, interdependence. What is that from?
7 Habits.
Yeah, Stephen Covey. The more I read of Stephen Covey's stuff, the more brilliant I realize he is. He kind of coined this progression. He calls it the maturity continuum. So everyone in life starts out dependent, right? What does it look like to be dependent? Just interact with me here for a second, guys. Huh? Did you just cry like a baby? Yeah. So why is a baby independent or dependent? It absolutely needs other people, right? Like, I mean, even if a small child is not like physically touched by its mother or held, I don't know if you guys, this, like, the Nazis were kind of crazy. I've read up a lot on like Nazi Germany, and that's a whole different topic. But so like one of the things that they would do in these like crazy science experiments was they would see how long a baby could survive without its mother ever touching it, and they'll die within a week or 2. So like nourishing it in every other way, giving it the same type of warmth that it needs, but no human touch, and the babies they'll just die. So like even that level of dependence we all have at some point in our lives, right? But so that's just physical dependence though. But there's other areas of life, right? So like emotional dependence, spiritual dependence, really there's financial dependence. So financial and economic dependence and physical dependence usually go hand in hand because they're bare necessities. They're like basics. You have to have energy to live physically and monetarily, because money is just nothing more than energy. It's like, it's an accounting for how much your value is worth in exchange, and what you get for that is energy that you can expend to get other things. So like that's a base necessity, is economic and physical, right? As a side note, what's really funny, I'm going to go on a lot of tangents here, so hopefully everybody can follow. What I think is really fascinating is that most of the door-to-door space and sales and business in general are hyper obsessed with 2 things: being in shape and making money. But they're like the lowest level ways to live, like completely. They're just base needs. Once you hit a certain level of money, it's like not even cool to think about the stuff that you could get anymore. And it just scales. It's like buying a cool yacht is like buying a Tesla Model S, but just when you're 40 versus like when you're 20 or something. It's just the same thing, but just like maybe a bigger. Huh? Levels, yeah. Levels aren't that cool though. Anyway, so that's one aspect of life. Then you've got emotional, so socio-emotional, which is like to love. So relationships, we all need relationships. And there's a continuum there. It's like most people are dependent on others emotionally, even though they're physically independent. And then you've got psychological, so we all have this need to learn. And then you also have spiritual, which is we all have a need to leave a legacy or to transcend ourselves and serve others. And so you can look at dependence, independence, and interdependence on all of these aspects of life. It's like all of you guys in here, most of us at least, are physically independent people, right? And we might even be interdependent people if you're married. Maybe. Physically, yeah. But I would bet that like probably the majority of people that come in to do sales are dependent emotionally at some level, maybe spiritually, probably psychologically as well. At least everyone that quits that you guys see, like especially right now, like maybe a couple of you guys are thinking about, I don't know if this is for me, I'm gonna go home. It's probably because you're dependent either in psychologically not willing to learn and grow, or emotionally not willing to connect with people in a way that actually is productive. And not to mention spiritually, but that's a whole other story. So anyway, there's this continuum. So dependence means that I need someone else, right? Now let's talk about independence. What does independence then mean? If dependence is I need someone, what is independence? I don't need anyone, right? I can basically do stuff on my own. Like 20 minutes ago, I drove to the gas station and bought an energy drink on my own because I'm dependent on caffeine, but I'm an independent human being. I'm dependent on caffeine for my psychological brain functioning, but I'm an independent person, which means I can get in the freaking car and drive to the 7-Eleven and get my energy drinks. Okay, now what's interdependence then?
You're independent with someone else.
Independent with someone else. I like that. What else? Talk to me more about that. If dependence is I can't survive without someone else or something else. If independence is I'm fine, I can survive on my own, then what is interdependence?
You can take care of yourself and somebody else.
Hey, you're capable of taking care of yourself and others. Great, I love that.
Kind of that synergistic
Yeah.
state.
So you're capable of interacting and like creating life in a way that is not solely reliant on you, but that you can go work with other people and even help them grow and progress as well. So you can start to form synergies where like if Phil and I work together and like if let's say we wanted to write a screenplay right now for something, right? Do you write screenplays? Only read them. Dabble? Okay, all right. So let's say we want to write a screenplay. I bet that if we put our heads together and we were willing to work together, we'd probably create something way better if we did it together than if each of us did it on our own, right? That's oh, were you going to say something?
I was going to say also like learning to also be a little bit dependent as well while being independent.
Being a little dependent while being independent. Oh, interesting. What do you mean by that?
So kind of just giving up control in some things and letting valuing the team or the efforts of other people.
Ah, okay. Giving up control, valuing the team. Kind of what I hear you saying is like maybe leveraging others' differences. So like recognizing that other people have different strengths than you or weaknesses, and when you compensate for them each other, then you form something better. Yeah.
Interdependence is an independent person who realizes what can be accomplished by working with other people.
Hey, I like that.
You're totally fine by yourself, but you could have more to be able to interact.
Okay, an independent person who realizes that they could accomplish more with others than on their own. Okay? Yeah, what else?
Or an independent person that's willing to sacrifice to be part of a greater social structure.
Willing to sacrifice to be part of, yeah, I like that. I mean, by definition, working with someone else is a social structure, so you're willing to sacrifice to work with someone else, right? So why am I even talking about this? Well, one, it's because you guys are all on teams. You're performing individually, and like the numbers show up on the leaderboards under your name, but if you can learn how to get outside of yourself and leverage other people's talents and strengths and where you are deficient in your own weaknesses, then like that's going to be huge for your summer. And the people that I see start to do that, and the teams that I see start to do that. So if you're a team leader or if you're on a team, you should be looking around and saying like, I shouldn't be the lone wolf, because by nature of the fact that I'm actually different than other people, I could leverage someone else's strengths to make me literally better, and I could also contribute and make someone else better, which means that both of our outputs would be more having each other than if we were doing it on our own. But it's impossible to get there unless you become an independent person. Anyway, I don't want to get like too philosophical because this stuff gets really deep, because I want to tie it to what I mean by the scripting here and the levels of salesmen that I see. So this is the maturity continuum, and the point is to go from needing others for everything to being solo where you could survive on your own. But like being an independent person isn't thriving. You're just surviving. You're just getting by. Because at some level you'll realize that like, I mean, if you go sold 1,000 accounts this year, that'd be pretty cool, but I think it's way cooler for a team to go do 5,000. I think it's way cooler to do 20,000, having done that nearly 2 summers in a row. I think it's way cooler to learn how to do, I mean, that's why it's like, people will come up to me and be like, yeah, so what's the most you've ever sold before? I'm like, 500. Like, okay, cool. And maybe they've done like 6 or 7 or 1,000 or something. Like, okay, sweet, yeah. I was like, well, I was managing 150 people that summer as well. Like, oh, okay, yeah, that's all right. That's not bad, that's cool. It's like, well, we did 12,000 accounts that summer. How many did you do? Like 1,000? Yeah, so I did 12,000 accounts. You did 1,000. But I couldn't do that on my own. You did that on your own, and you're capped. You can only cram so many more accounts into a day. Like even if you sold, I mean, if you really were killing it and you got out at 9 a.m. and you came home at 9 p.m. every single day, 6 days a week. We call that selling solar on steroids. If you guys have ever seen solar guys, they go out for like 4 hours. Yeah, this is like selling solar on steroids. Just lone wolf, solo, all day, every day though. But I mean, that's no career. That's like no way to, I mean, you can maybe make the money and then shuttle that into other stuff. But like, you want to go have like good business partnerships down the road with people, you're gonna have to learn how to work with people at some point. If you want to go learn how to like actually produce in a really big way, it's the difference between being a part of like a mom and pop company and being a part of like a multinational conglomeration is like your ability to work with other people. And also, by the way, like what's more important is your ability to work with people in like relationships in your marriage. I mean, my wife is the most independent person I've ever met. I don't need Sarah. Sarah doesn't need me. But by nature of that, it's like really counterintuitive. By nature of that, though, we have like the most amazing marriage ever because instead of being codependent on each other for each other's weaknesses to justify our own insecurities, now we can actually choose to go like be something awesome together and like leverage each other's strengths. Can I give you guys an example of this? I'm going all over the place. Is this okay, by the way? Okay. So I really like being good. Let me be careful how I phrase this. I really like to be good at making money, but I am really bad at managing money. So I basically have an on and an off switch when it comes to spending. So I'm either spending nothing and selling all of my possessions, which I actually just did this last week again. Like every 2 years, I'm like, I have way too many shoes. I'm like selling everything, and now I have like maybe 3 pairs of shoes or something. And all my clothes too. Sarah's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, this stuff takes up too much space in my mind. So let's just get rid of all of it. She's like, all right. So it's like on-off switch. I'm horrible at managing money, in my personal opinion. I'm also giving myself grace because I didn't grow up in like the most wealthy family or whatever. And so like I'm in the process of learning that. Well, my wife, Sarah, she was like an accountant in a former life, I think. She's like really good with just like discipline and details. So I was trying to manage, like I'm the man in the family, right? Or like I need to make the money, I need to manage the money. And it was just kind of getting to the place where I was like, man, we are not being good stewards of like we had this real estate investment come up, and I was like not prepared to go put in the money that I wanted to in it, and I just realized it's because I had spent so much of it. I'm like, I'm so stupid, this is so dumb. So instead of being a stubborn, independent person who's like, I don't need anybody else, I'm fine, I finally realized I was like, my wife literally is 1,000,000 times better at this stuff than me. And she's also like willing to do anything that I asked her to. So I was like, we sat down, we'd have our weekly finance meeting. I'm like, Sarah, can you please manage the money going forward? Because I don't think I'm being a good steward of our money. And she's like, no, you're fine. I'm like, no, I actually know I'm not just seeking pity, but like, can you please manage the money for us going forward? So we worked out this deal where she's doing all of our finances and managing them. And like, she gives me a budget and rules, which I hate, but it's good. It's good for me. So like, I get texts now that are like, hey, did you spend because we have a rule, if I spend more than $50, I have to ask her. And I hate that, but I came up with it because I know what I need right now. So anyway, this is an example of like looking next year, now I'll have all of the things that I need in order to make the investments I want because we're leveraging each other's strengths. She's compensating for my weaknesses. And so as one unit, we actually have probably 4 or 5 times the strengths combined than if we were just operating individually, right? So that's an example just in life in general. It's like, I mean, I had been working with teams on this for years, and just in my own marriage, I was like, why are we not doing this in our marriage? Anyway, so that's an example of that. And that's where you go from stopping being stubborn as an independent person and learning how to work with other people. And you can even do that as an individual sales rep. And I'll show you a little bit of how to do that in a second. There's also this thing called the immaturity continuum, though. And this is where it gets bad. In fact, the people that are in this immaturity continuum, they won't last very long in sales or in anything hard in life. And they typically end up working either bouncing from job to job or in our space, company to company, and just in a way that's like counterproductive. But you go from being a dependent person to being counter-dependent, which means that you just rebel. You need everyone to justify your weaknesses now. So instead of just needing people for survival, now you need everyone to justify your weaknesses in kind of a manipulative way. That's counter-dependence. And then codependence is basically like you find other counter-dependent people and you start conspiring against the system to like make it worse.
actively. That's what codependence essentially is. And you really need each other for each other's weaknesses, but then you go leverage those weaknesses to just make the world a worse place. And you might be thinking like, oh yeah, I'm not Hitler, that's not me. Like, you don't have to be Hitler. You can just gossip and you'll be right there actually. That's it. That's all you have to do. You want to make the world a better place? Go to this realm, be counter-dependent to where you need someone else to justify your weaknesses, and then get really good at that and become so good at that that all you do is just talk about problems and never do anything about them, and now you're a codependent person. Congratulations. Okay, so that's the maturity continuum and the immaturity continuum, all right? So now we're going to get into what does that actually mean for, it's like this is so esoteric, philosophical, what does that actually mean for scripting and sales, okay? Are you guys good if I keep going down this route? I know the guys that are like closers in here, they're like chomping at the bit to get out and sell. This will just be, just 2 days will be, I promise, and long-winded, and then you can go hit your goals. Okay, so let's start here, dependence. What happens when you get out during the summer? You're completely dependent on someone else to teach you how to succeed. If you're a proactive person, you'll go find the resources that you need, but you're actually very dependent on those resources. Who's done sales in here before that is not door-to-door sales? Anyone? Have you've done sales that's not door-to-door? What have you done? Cars? Okay, nice.
I've done insurance and solar material.
Insurance and what?
Electrical material.
Electrical material. Okay, like
Wire panels, different things like that.
got it. Yeah.
Gym memberships and supplements.
Nice.
I did insurance, mortgage lending, and software sales.
Insurance, mortgage lending, software, inside sales. Cool. Great.
Kitchen knives.
Kitchen knife, dude. Cutco?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Also selling all the billionaires fancy food.
Sorted
in
it all.
restaurant. Gym memberships. Dude, speaking of supplements, I feel like you should go buy some. You look like you need some. I'd recommend a nice set of protein, some creatine, a little more than you think you need. Yeah. And if you want other good stuff, we can talk after. Yeah, or Cole. Cole's, he's fine. I mean, you could get okay, so but that's how you start the summer, and like every position that you go in this job is really interesting because at some level you start over again, and now you're dependent. You're dependent on at least on resources to give you what you need in order to understand. And a proactive person is going to go seek those resources, but many of you guys are going to like need your team leader to reach out to you to tell you to role play and what to work on. And like you're barely going to make it and make 100, do 150 counts or something like that. So you need to become enough of a dependent or independent person to be proactive enough to realize that you are dependent on everyone else to succeed at first. And then once you start gaining the skill set, you move your way up into being an independent person. You're like, oh, sweet. Now, like, this is where the entire sales industry is in the independence category, where they're like, okay, like just solo lone wolf, prize themselves on performance, and that's it. We're kind of the opposite. We like care more about leadership than individual performance. But in that being said, it's not that we don't care about individual performance. I just view individual high performance as a stepping stone to become a really good leader, but a necessary one. So whereas like the industry kind of stops there, it's like that's the end all be all of everything. Okay, and then the opposite of this is like you need all the material to succeed. You need it to go read the manual, to study the modules, all that stuff. But what happens when someone starts applying the script and their sales start to dip a little bit because they're learning how to apply their personality? They start to degrade into this immaturity continuum where they're like, I know Hayden's thing says this, which, by the way, I don't think the modules are perfect. So, like, if you have criticism, just tell me because I need to make it better. But you'll hear people talk about this. They're like, yeah, this thing works for me. Like, whatever Moxie's saying, I just say this thing and it helps. It works. So you start to kind of rebel a little bit against, like, the system. Like, everyone's telling you, or you've done sales. That's why I asked if you guys have done sales before. Because if you've done sales before, you get out here, you're like, I've done sales, I'm fine. You're not fine, dude, I promise. No one is safe and no one is fine, right? Who's knocked already of that group that did sales before? Who's already knocked a few doors? It's not fine, right? Not yet. You're not safe. So, but you're right here though. You're dependent as a sales rep in the scripting and in the sales process. So you now have two choices. Because like the prideful version of you is gonna want to go and start saying like, yeah, but when I did sales before, or yeah, but like when I had that good week before. And so you start degrading into counter dependence, and you need the weaknesses of the company, the weaknesses of the software, the fact that we're moving office spaces, your area. The more limiting beliefs someone has, the more they're here because they need those limiting beliefs to justify their lack of performance. You see what I'm saying? And that's just a defense mechanism. I don't blame people for doing that. That's just your animal brain saying like, man, this is really tough emotionally. So I've got these goals here and I'm suffering here to get them and it looks like I'm not gonna achieve those goals. So logical answer is like, oh, area is bad. So I need bad area to justify my lack of performance. I can't just not perform. Like, it has to be for a reason, right? I need the fact that like my family X, Y, and Z, or that my whatever's cousin's brother's son family reunion is coming up. It's like, oh, I have to go to that now. It came out of nowhere. It's like, those are these people right here. So anytime you start hearing that, we're like, yeah, it's because I would have sold this today, but whatever. It's like, you know how many, like, I know a lot of 1,000 level reps, but only a couple that have actually done 1,000 accounts. And those are the guys that are 1,000 level reps that have never done it are usually right here. They talk about it all the time. It's like one of the things I love about Braden Searle is I've never heard him talk about a goal and not hit the goal. And I find that with every high performer, all the high producers. It's like, first of all, Braden doesn't even, like, I'll bet many of you guys don't know what Braden Searle's goal is. Because he's very leery about talking about the goal outwardly and then not actually going and like freaking executing on it. Because executing is just everything. It's so important. Whereas like everyone else, I hear him like, yeah, hey, guess what? I'm gonna do 350 accounts here. It's like, we'll see. Because they're here. But then when they stop, when they don't do their 300 accounts or 4 or 5 or whatever, they're just like, well, it's because of the whatever. It's because of the training. It's because of it's like everything. So they need those things to justify their counter dependence, their own weaknesses. And then what you'll find, this is the last step before people quit. Sometimes they go through this level fast and then they quit. The last step before people quit is, yeah, it's like usually you're in and you're out and you're just like, dude, that was impressively fast how you went through that immaturity continuum. So the last level of the immaturity continuum from the sales rep perspective is they start rebelling with other people first to make sure that they're checked, all their weaknesses are justified completely. They rebel against it, like with other people. They'll conspire against them. Sometimes I had a team one time that formulated their own apartment together, like this just codependent apartment. It was incredible, dude. How they just like they were so good at being terrible. If they put the same amount of energy as they did gossiping and talking, like if they just every minute and they spent in like half-hearted role plays, they would have been incredible sales reps. But they didn't. Instead, they were codependent because they needed each other's weaknesses to justify their lack of performance, and then they started rebelling against the system, and then a couple of them quit, the other ones stayed out, and guess what? The guys that stayed out, they hated the rest of the team because the rest of the team were just like utter high performers, and they didn't give a crap. They just went out the door. So that's what happens here. The same thing happens, you're wondering when I'm going to get to scripting. Well, you can look at this as like you don't know the script, then you think that you know better than the script because the script is somehow not working for you, or the training. Don't think just script, think like sales training in general. And think it from your team leader, not just like modules, but like, yeah, Phil told me to do this thing, it doesn't work, I'm just going to do this thing because I got 2 sales doing that. Okay, sweet. And then you rebel, and then you quit. Okay, so remember I said you have a choice, right? So the choice now is to say, okay, I can be a dependent person, that's fine, but I'm going to learn the script, I'm going to do it well. I remember talking, the first time I met Sean was at the movie theater. What movie did we watch when we met?
Love and Thunder is horrible.
Was it freaking, was it Doctor Strange?
Oh, because Dr. Strange was worse. I would like,
Yeah,
wish I could get that back. Yeah, I'd rather just go legally do mushrooms or something. Basically, yeah. So I'm told.
He goes, yeah.
Dude. Yeah.
Anyway.
I haven't done a lot of things in my life, but I've been on a lot of Reddit boards, so I'll tell you that. Okay, well, so the first time we met was after Thor: Love and Thunder. Terrible movie as well. Man, they had such a good chance to make that movie fun, but it was nice actors. Yeah, so but first time I met Sean, so McKay, my brother, had been telling me about Sean, and I was like, this sounds like he's a stud. And we met in person. You just like, I remember I could overhear you. You didn't know I was like there sitting or listening, but I could overhear Sean talking about a very specific video in the module and explaining it with excitement to someone as if he had seen it like 10 times. He's like, this kid's gonna kill it this summer. It's like, Rookie of the Year in Florida, and close to Rookie of the Year in our whole company. Close enough, yeah.
Not close enough.
Close enough that it doesn't matter because winning consistently over the long term is way more important. So, but yeah, that's an example of he went and used the resources and started climbing up that continuum quickly. But you have to learn them first. So once you start learning them, then you get into this independent state where like you're a really good individual producer. Okay? So how do individual producers view that are like they're decent at sales? I'm talking 200 accounts to 400 account range is like right here. Let's talk about how they view the script. So you guys who are 200 level reps to 400, if you don't do 200 accounts, you're right here. And that's nothing to feel bad about. It just means that you need more work, okay? 200 to 400 accounts, and I'm using accounts on purpose and not revenue because I believe that like the number of deals you can close in a day is a better indicator of than your contract value, although contract value is important. So 200 to 400 account range, you view the script as a task-oriented set of boxes to check. So dependent sales reps don't even know what boxes to check on the doors. They're just like saying a bunch of stuff and hoping that they close. And then they get just enough sales to where they don't think they need to work harder. 200 to 400 level reps, they know what to say, and most of the time they try to say it, although some of the time not so much. Okay? But basically you know what to say. So if I said, hey, what's the third step of the script? You're like, intro, fact finding, or you're talking about transition, Hayden, or building value? I'm like, yeah, okay, building value, sure. Okay, so you know exactly what's going on. Like, what's the third objection after price? You're like, best case, worst case scenario. What's the first thing you do after price? Hypothetical tonality. It's like that is, makes sense? Transition, right? Build value, close. Cool, okay, that's 200 to 400 level range. If you want to get up to like Braden Searle status, Cole Allen status, who else over here has done, in that 400 and above range? Anyone yet? John in his own world is 500.
I've serviced 500, baby. 1,000 level serviced.
Okay.
Not sold, just serviced.
Yeah, only service. We don't care about sold. Although we do care about sold to service ratio, though, right, John? Right. Yes. Okay, 400 plus, from what I've observed, is you're goal-oriented, not task-oriented in the sale. And oftentimes this is not even, you're not aware of it. So like, I'll give you an example. Yesterday we were, Sean and I were talking about this, is like, don't just give an intro. Instead, don't move on until you have trust with the person. That's goal-oriented versus task-oriented. A 400 guy or like 300 level rep, like me, I've been a 300 level rep, I've been a 500 level rep. And the difference was I stopped caring about whether I gave an intro and then I moved on to features and benefits. And I started caring way more about, am I in rapport with this person? And then, all right, now that I'm in rapport, what do they need? Well, I don't know what they need unless I ask them questions, right? And so now I ask like 100 times more questions than I did when I was a 300 level rep because I really needed to know what they needed. And do you see how that's goal-oriented versus task-oriented? Okay, so someone reiterate that to me because I don't know if I'm explaining it super well. What's the difference between a task-oriented sales rep and a goal-oriented sales rep in the script? Yes?
With task-oriented, you're just moving kind of through the process no matter what reaction you're getting.
Yeah. You almost don't care what the response is.
Yeah.
You're checking the box and going to the next thing.
Because you memorize the script.
Yes.
And goal-oriented is you're not moving forward until you have achieved a certain goal or checkpoint.
Within the sale.
Which is not just the script, but it's also like emotional. It's like trust.
Yep.
Sort of
Yeah, and so like, if my goal is to help Ferris trust me, then I'm gonna care a lot about like how we're interacting with each other, right? And so like that's gonna be different for every person, but I'm accomplishing the same task at the beginning of the sale. It's like, how often do you do the same intro, Brad, when you give your pitch?
You're asking if I tailor it to the person.
At least a couple times I've not graded.
Yeah, I just gotta make sure I answer what everybody else would respond.
Not your question. Not your question. Answer how, even if it's not what I'm looking for. Answer however. But like I at least when I've knocked with Brady, and it's been a minute, obviously, but I don't recall you really giving the same word for word intro on every single door.
Really?
But when you started, you did though.
Oh yeah.
It's because you had to. You had to learn like how to get into rapport with people, right? And like what actually works to get into rapport. And then you start building that arsenal. And then it becomes more of like, do these people trust me? Because like, yeah, so often people will, like you guys as reps will be like, man,
I closed so many times. I gave them price. How do I overcome the objection that my dog is in the vet right now and I can't afford pest control? It's like you have these weird, obscure objections you won't know how to overcome. I'm thinking that like the last objection you heard that made you leave is the reason why they didn't buy. That's not the reason why they didn't buy. So you just never had their trust in the first place. And so you have to make it goal-oriented, where it's like, okay, I can't move on until they trust me. All right, what comes after trust then? Or rapport?
Value.
Well, I need to give them value, but how am I going to know what value I need to give someone? I need to ask them questions to understand, right? Like, I need to actually know what situation they're in order to tailor it. Whereas the 200 to 400 guy, what he's going to do is he's just going to keep going through features and benefits until something clicks. And then he's going to keep closing until they say yes. And then he's going to get the cops call on him after like the 5th close because like the guy with the no soliciting sign who said, I'm not interested, please get off my property. I don't know why you think he's going to buy still. Because he's not. Because you never had his trust in the first place. Why? Probably because you knocked his door when he like had a handwritten like fresh ink, no soliciting sign on his door. Like, I'm going to get this guy.
When all he had to do was ask about what kind of dog that guy
Yeah, all you had to do is say, hey, I realize that you just wrote this no soliciting sign on the door right now. Can I at least see you with the card or something? I just want to be the good bug guy so that whenever you do need good pest control, you can at least come to me. Does that sound fair? Like, that's an intro that I've never given my whole life, but if that guy just wrote a handwritten, like I could see fresh Sharpie, no soliciting on his doorstep. Yeah, I could like smell it. He comes out and you're just like nose against the door. Yeah, that's, I might do something like that. That's different, but like that's still my intro. But instead, I know to do something different because I'm goal-oriented in the outcomes rather than task-oriented, okay? Is this making sense? Okay, what are your guys' takeaways from this so far? Yeah, just things that are standing out to you.
I'm starting to realize that listening more to sales is super important.
Yeah.
Just check out the boxes. I'm just moving away.
Yeah. Adaptability. Yep. Most people, if they're like alpha sales rep, they want to be strong, but strength does not get you anywhere. Strength breaks really easily. Adaptability is what matters, though. I read a book by you guys know what SEAL Team 6 is? So this guy named Rich Davini, he was a member of SEAL Team 6. He became the commander of SEAL Team 6, and then he wrote a book called The Attributes because he was seeking to understand the Navy SEALs have such a low acceptance rate. He wanted to know what attributes could we look for in people to make that higher, to find people quicker and to not expend as many resources. He built this really cool thing called the Mind Gym. And anyway, so what he wrote in this book is like, he's like, if we analyze the Navy SEALs and the whole history of the SEALs, as well as the commonalities of species that make it through evolution over billions of years, they share 2 of the same traits, and it's not strength. It's called adaptability. So like the best salesmen are adaptable. They're not strong. And Viktor Frankl actually said something really, this is turning into a mindset training. I shouldn't have had you say what it was going to be out of, sorry. Viktor Frankl, do you guys know who Viktor Frankl is? Wrote Man's Search for Meaning, like very impactful. If you're ever feeling down about yourself in your life, after knocking doors, just go read Man's Search for Meaning. He has this quote in it where he says, he's in the death camps in Nazi Germany. He was a psychiatrist from Poland who was imprisoned with his family, many of whom died, and he did not die. And so he became kind of a leader within his group of the inmates of the campees. And one of the things he said, just to kind of paint this picture for you, is there was one night he heard a man whimpering in his dreams because he was having a nightmare. And so they were both naked on the floor, on this cold, dark, just grimy floor, hard cement with rocks everywhere, so very uncomfortable. And this man was sleeping and he was having a nightmare, he could tell. And Frankl had been a psychiatrist, and so he said, I had a deep sympathy for those that were tormented psychologically because I had dealt with them in my practice. And so I had deep sympathy for them. And so he said he walked over to wake the man up from his nightmare, and then he had to stop himself because he realized that he would wake him up to an even worse nightmare than what he was probably going through. And that the worst service that he could do to this man was wake him up to the reality of the nightmare that he was in. It's like, if you think knocking doors is hard, knocking doors is not hard. Like, that's that's a hard day, you know. So Frankel said that he was very surprised actually, because one of the meditative experiences he did to actually survive the death camps in Nazi Germany was he tried to understand what attributes made it so that people died versus people that lived. And you'd think that like, well, that's just kind of random by chance, right? It's like some people just got beat worse, maybe, or some people were just starved for longer, maybe. It's like, no, we all had the same treatment. So I wanted to understand like, why did some people die? And he was very curious about this because the guys who were like Cole and Christian and maybe me, they come in and they were the guys that actually died first. He was very surprised. He's like, the ones that seemed strong in stature did not make it very long, typically. And the people who were like more frail and like more kind of intellectual, he's like, those guys actually survived more on average. And why? Because they had this ability to retreat within their minds and to protect themselves from like the outside world, basically. And this, the reason I'm sharing this is because it's very applicable to like sales and your ability to like develop a resilience that will allow you to win and succeed. What I'm really getting at here with this though, guys, is like, it takes a lot of mental consideration to go win at anything in life, and also to go all into the principles that are going to make you really successful. And adaptability is the thing that's actually way more important than strength when it comes to this. And so ultimately we want to get to the point to where we are actually adaptable within the sale, because that is way, way cooler than being strong or being the guy that knocks the most doors. Although you're going to need to do that. You need to do that to go from being a dependent to an independent sales rep. You need to learn how to knock the doors, to do the work. That's just baseline stuff right there. But then once you get to that level and you've got the script memorized and you're applying it within your own personality, now it's all about like goal-oriented communication, okay? Last thing I'm gonna say here, and then are you guys okay if we do like maybe 1 or 2 role plays before we go out? Okay, and I know I'm taking time, guys. I apologize. I get really antsy when a meeting goes past 30 minutes because with my team, I'd always try to keep it at 30 minutes and like run out the door, so. But I realize I don't have much time with you guys. So, okay, as I've kind of thought about this, it's really interesting because like these levels here, and this is by nature, but like for sure, if you're a rebellious sales rep who's like thinks you know better, you're definitely selfish. And especially if you're conspiring with other people to be rebellious, you're selfish. If you're a dependent person, you're by nature selfish because you need other people, right? So like you have to be focused on yourself. Like you guys ever heard that kind of like pseudo phrase like you can't help anyone else unless you help yourself first? I don't even know what that is. I've never heard that before in my life. That what I just actually said. But like that idea, like you can't actually help someone until you first help yourself, or you can't serve someone until you yourself are a strong person, right? Well, so by nature, if you're coming out and starting to sell right now, it's like you shouldn't be leading a team. Why? Because you don't even know how to help yourself yet. So like you have to learn that. It's like a continuum, a progression. When you get to here, independent, this is the worst place to be because it's really elusive. And why is it elusive? Is because it's full of selfishness that's rewarded now with sales. But it's necessary in a progression. If that becomes your sole focus and that's your whole career, I just want to be it's just me. I'm just going to go kill it every year. It's like, I hope you manage money well and can make really good investments, but also like at some level, you're just missing out on like really high level joys in life. But inherently, you're still selfish though. But you're selfish in the worst way if you stay there for too long because you're being rewarded by getting sales for being selfish, essentially. And I'm trying, it's like, don't think of selfish in a normal negative connotation way, just think of it like factual definition of the term, like focus on you, okay? Why I love the idea of becoming a guy that can sell over 400 accounts is because it inherently means that you have to become selfless. So what do I mean by that? It's like, if I'm just checking boxes on the sale, whose mind am I in the whole time? Yours. My own, right? I'm like, yep, all right, intro, done. Features and benefits, done. And then I get 4 sales a day, I'm like, yeah, I would have 6 if our script didn't suck so bad. It can't possibly be me. It's because I'm just checking boxes, but I'm in my own mind. Once I get to goal-oriented sales, whose mind am I in now?
Customers.
The customers. Why? Because I can't do anything without serving them, right? And so like, this is an amazing place to be at the top of the spectrum. And why, like yesterday, man, I was just like freaking bright-eyed, bushy-tailed out there knocking. I'm like, oh wait, I'm away from my wife. We have like really pressing doctor's appointments coming up of things that I don't have answers to yet. There's like a lot of crap that's on my mind. I didn't get to bed till 3 o'clock last night because
stupidly started reviewing data from the sales day yesterday, and then I wanted to do something about it, and so I couldn't stop thinking and didn't fall asleep until really late. There's just a ton of stuff on my mind, but out there on the door, I just felt at home. Why? Because like I love talking with someone, and then for the first time in a long time, they think a door-to-door sales rep is just going to be this selfish SOE. It's going to try to sell them on stuff just to make money. But then when you flip the script on that, and you're all focused on them, and you only care about them, it's the most refreshing thing ever. And it's like, this is, I would get really, any of you guys that are like higher performers get like sentimental about areas, like where you really, like you get a lot of sales in an area and you don't want to leave it because you just like make friends with a bunch of people there. Did you ever happen to get them? Every area is like, for me, it's like depressing going to a new area because I'm like, dude, just freaking the Johnsons, they're so cool. I'm treating the Smiths. What? But you like know all the details of like people's lives. You just like love them. What? So, but that means that you probably spend more time talking with people. But it's so much more fun because you're like focused on serving and helping them. And rather than being in your own head checking boxes, pretending that you're doing the highest and best use of your time, where like, and don't get me wrong, guys, like you can't leap up to here and then you pass through these continuums. You have to pay the price to be a service-oriented person by first focusing on you and getting to that point. There's a real deep price that has to be paid. But once you pay that price, like get outside of yourself and start serving other people, and you will have the most phenomenal experience in sales, but just in life in general, because you'll learn how to do that in a really productive way. Yeah. Can I tell you guys, I'm sorry, we're not even gonna get to role plays. We can do that tomorrow, is that okay? Or if you guys wanna come early, a couple of us can do role plays and we can film it and you can look back on it if you want. It's like, well, okay, because I don't wanna keep you guys much longer than this. I just wanna tell you a quick story. So, who of you guys in here, don't tell me like what religion, but like churchgoers, or done church in your life and then you go semi-regularly to church. Or like worship, frequently. Okay, awesome. And if not, like also fine too. We're like, I love everyone and everyone loves everyone. We're trying to like make it not like, I'm not saying this is like a religious meeting, but it's like, yeah, it's not. Okay, so only I'm asking this because church is a big part of my life, and I, as much as I can try to take on a responsibility within any congregation that I'm in so that I can feel like I'm fulfilling that role in my life. And a month or two ago, I was out with another member of our congregation, and we were going and doing some visits for some new people that had just moved into our congregation and started attending with us. And one of the people, somehow the person I was with, who was a leader in the congregation, knew that this family was kind of struggling. And I love this person to death. This is the guy that I was going out and like working and helping these families with. But he's probably the 200 to 400 level rep, right? It's like, we need to go talk about these things, and we need to make sure that we say this, and we need to make sure that we do this, right? We need to make sure that we have a prayer with these people, and like, so it's like very task oriented. And he's also an accountant. He's like the financial controller for a major university. Like amazing person, super competent. But that's just how his mind is. It's like check, check, check. So we get into this room, and like I can tell his family just feels really awkward about being asked all these questions, and they're like not really church members at this point, right? So like, how awkward do you feel? Okay, so great. Again, I'm not trying to be weird or religious about this, but like, just raise your hand if you're not like necessarily. Okay, so how would you feel like going to your house and I started like grilling you on questions about like going to church, and you just like, that's part of my life. Yeah, that'd kind of be strange, right? So that's kind of what we were doing to these people, and I was like, this is bad. It just feels so bad. So I noticed when we got there that this guy and his wife were wearing like these dope shoes. And I had just recently started getting into like sneakerhead type style shoes, like the the cooler stuff, because a bunch of my sales reps like shoes, and so I was like, I gotta test what this is like to see. Obviously, it's like, so, Sarah, hey, I'm buying some shoes. It's for research. So anyway, so like I oddly enough, I actually have those shoes. Well, they're Yeezys. I love those. They're comfy, except for they hurt your ankles. So I could see that she was wearing this like really new pair of blazers that had just dropped on Dope, and he was wearing some Jordans that were like pretty rare. And so like we get it, and like, so the guy that I'm with, he's like,
guys say any prayers? I just want to really encourage you, like all this stuff. So I was like, hey, I leaned over, like, hey, I have a question. Can I interject? He's like, so he like looks over to me as if I'm gonna like pull open like my Bible or something. And I start talking to him, and I'm like, did you just get those that drop? Like, how did you get those so fast? And she's like, what? And so like they're just tuned out, really annoyed at this point, right? I'm like, how did you get those shoes so fast? And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, those just dropped on GOAT, or did you get them like through the sneakers app or something? And she's like, oh no, I got them on GOAT. I'm like, really? Like, is your size one of those sizes that is like a decent price, or like did you pay full price for those, or like whatever the GOAT price is? She's like, no, luckily my size is one that's like not that expensive. I was like, oh, that's dope. Or like, I guess most people don't buy it, so whatever. Or it's more common. Whatever makes the price not as much, that's what and anyway, so like the rest of the conversation, I just talked to them about shoes like the entire time. They're like really good friends of mine. And you know, like putting all, again, just church stuff aside, I'm only using this as a point to say, like, if you have other things in your life that matter to you outside of sales, where did I learn how to do that? I didn't learn how to do that in my 200 to 400 level rep summer because I was busy in my own mind checking boxes, right? It's like I was the duty bound guy who just went out and knocked all the doors and was out on the doors on time. It's like, that's important, you still have to do that. But like the summers that I started really selling well and serving other people, that's where I learned how to do that. And so I just saw this clear transition into a part of my life that I actually value much more than money or sales or whatever, that clearly translates over into something really meaningful. And like, you don't get to that point without learning how to go through this continuum and serve other people at a high level. So like, that's why, guys, I will do this sales type job for as long as I possibly can. Any business that I own, I want to be involved in the sales stuff because I believe that this is a mechanism by which you can become truly the best version of yourself if you learn it well. But let me just restate this one more time. There is a deep price that has to be paid if you want to have the joy of serving other people. A deep price. And that price is with you, with yourself. Okay? So what I want you guys to be thinking about as you're going into the sales season is, what's the price I have to pay today to be worthy of serving people at the highest level tomorrow? Okay? So if you do that, I don't know how to, I wish I could just like download this feeling into your brains of what it feels like to serve people at a high level and to have like actually affect their lives for good. And you can even do this with customers in a way. I mean, like, what if you made a goal of every area you taught that you were going to be known for being the person who sought out the family who might be like maybe struggling with anything really, and were like the source of comfort for them, or went and bought them groceries, or like surprised them with, I don't know, dog food or something because they have a dog that needs a specific type of food, something like weird like that. What if you made a goal that you wanted to be remembered for something in every one of your areas and actually like affect change positively so that everything that you do, everything that you touch is just better because of you, rather than just you being better because of everything that you touch. Okay, so that's kind of what I want to leave you guys with, and I'm just going to read you guys one more thing. And this is going to be from Viktor Frankl, and then we're going to head out, and we can do role plays tomorrow, or we can do them tonight even too, if you guys want. I'll be here all night. Okay, let me find this really fast. First off, before I get into this last quote, because I just want to end on this note, tell me some takeaways that you guys are having from this. Like, what are some insights, aha moments, maybe even things that I haven't said but that have come to your mind? Yeah.
I'm still stuck on the Dustin Poirier review.
Oh, really? Okay.
That hit really hard just because.
What about it?
The fact that you can't, because there was times even last summer where I can credit that maybe having a good day, but I'll literally be watching Moxie between doors sometimes.
Oh, okay.
And it's like having that mentality where, hey, like, I'm already here and the time to prepare is kind of gone. So you just accept that it's already 9 p.m., it's already 9:30, and I just need to go out and do whatever is kind of ready for me.
Yeah.
And do it to my best ability. So I'm not really sulking on it. So I'm not thinking, oh, it's 4 o'clock, I don't have to yet.
Yeah.
Well, like, it's 9:30 already. Like, I'm just gonna do whatever I need to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you're constantly thinking like, crap, it's 7, I don't have as many sales as I want. We were talking with Sean and I were talking about this yesterday again too, or like the worst part of the day is for me is actually to the 2 to 3 to 4 sales mark. Because most people, that's when they get satisfied. But like, you're just getting started if you got 4 sales, but it's kind of a lot of work to get that momentum, you know? So like, that's just the worst part of the day, I think. It's like, there's nothing worse than ending with part of the day where you think you're getting momentum. It sucks. Okay, I love that though. But like, think about that. You're saying you watched Moxie between doors last year or whatever. It's like, whose head are you in?
Mine too, because you're watching. You're like, yeah. Yeah, but like you're not in the customer's head.
No.
You're not watching out for like, man, what could this customer need that like they don't even realize, and how could I present it to them? Like, yep. I mean, whenever I talk to Braid, you're always like, dude, you talk about the 8-miling or like kind of front running objections. He's like looking at license plates to see where they're from, or like what type of stickers they have on the car just before you go. And it becomes natural and intuitive, and so like he's not in his own head. Right? That's why you like love being on the doors, dude. It's like you can't pull Braden off the doors. It's not even hard for him to work as hard as he does because he just like loves people. Otto.
My guy base has to be like your best training I've ever heard.
Say that again?
It's probably your best training I've ever heard.
Really? Why?
I just love how it's like you're just breaking down all the components, and then it's really just like understand where you're at on this and what you need to do to get to where you want to get.
Understanding where you're on the continuum and what you need to do to get to the next level of that continuum.
Yeah, as much as it sucks, like just understand, like be real with yourself and know where you are on this.
Yeah.
Both sides of it.
Dude.
It is what it is.
Right.
It just, but like you're also like explaining how to get there.
Right.
I love the goal oriented one versus task oriented. Because I'll find myself a lot of times like, oh, I did price, I did this, I went 3 objections, and I feel
Like, what's going on?
hard.
It's just a numbers game. You ever say that? It's like, it's just a numbers game. It's like, well, when I'm closing like 1 in every 2 people, that doesn't feel like really a numbers game to me. It just feels like I just need to talk to someone else.
Exactly.
You know? It's like, that's the difference. Dude, your face has come to my mind many times during this training, so I've been thinking about like, what's more, so, sorry, I'm gonna say 2 disconnected things. What I was gonna say there is like, this is actually the next step for you personally, Otto. You trying to go sell what I know you wanna sell, you're kind of like right here, just maybe without realizing it, and you need to get to goal oriented, where it's like, I'm just hyper focused on the customer and everything that they need all the time. It feels like a lot more energy at first, but what it really is, it's like it actually ends up becoming where you plug in and you start getting, you get fueled by doing it. You charge up instead of expending energy. This one here, you expend energy because there's nothing more energy expending in nature than being in your own head and just like thinking. Whereas like if you can focus on other people, it's like plugging in and just like recharging all day. Yeah. Okay. Give me a couple more while I look up this last thing I want to share before we get out of here. Yeah.
You said at the beginning it's better to be tenacious than nice, but to be a top level performer, you have to be tenaciously nice.
Hey, it's better to be tenacious than nice, but to be a high level performer, you have to be tenaciously nice. You have to be good at pushing people without making it feel like you're pushing them. Yeah.
This is my first year. I haven't knocked.
First year, haven't knocked the door yet. Can you talk louder?
I mean, I like it because like it's reminding me like, okay, there's levels to it.
Yeah, there's levels.
Don't be too hard on myself. Things don't go my way.
Yeah, if you're not here, it's like, well, newsflash, dude, I don't know anybody that was here that started right away. And I definitely don't know anybody that like started here right away either. Even the guys that go do 200 accounts, they start here in their first summer, right? I even feel like I start here every single summer. I was trying not to admit this on the doors with you yesterday, Sean, but I was like incredibly nervous and felt super rusty. I'm like, gosh, I'm like doing Sean a disservice by showing him, because I feel like I'm an independent little child on the doors today. And anyway, so yeah. What else? Other stuff? Sean?
I don't think you said this, but what I pulled from it is like sales is a conversation, not like a presentation.
Ooh, it's a conversation, not a presentation. Yeah. Yep. Love that. What else? Yeah.
To me, just like the importance of being in rapport, personally, because I've realized like I can get through all their objections, but again, because they don't have that trust with me, they just don't.
Yeah, and what you're really doing, you're not even getting through any actual objections. You're just bouncing from smoke screen to smoke screen. If you don't have trust, that's when you get the most objections from someone, is when you don't have trust with them. It's like, I gotta talk to my husband. Yeah, but just leave me with the card. Yeah, but I don't know if we're gonna move. Yeah, but, and then you start drawing improper conclusions, thinking like, oh, it's the this, it's the that, it's the area, it's the person, it's the husband, it's the spouse, it's the whatever. Like, no, it's always just you, actually. So on, let me get one more insight. Phil.
I don't know if people with independence, and it's just kind of submitting yourself.
Talk a little louder, just because we have sound.
Yeah. So for interdependence, I just wrote submitting and compromising synergistically without necessity.
Hey.
And I think that's something I'm trying to work on. But I just have never thought about it quite that way, that we're submitting.
Yes.
Even though you don't have to.
Yeah, so like, Sarah and I never fight, but we have a lot of really serious discussions. And she's like a very calm person. I'm a very like animated. So like when I get like upset about something, I tend to like raise my voice, but not to yell, but rather just because it's like I feel intensely about it, you know. And so I've had to learn how to pull that back. But what I've realized is like to be interdependent, you actually have to be okay with being not only wrong, but you have to be okay with how people feel and think about you. And so the stronger you become as an independent person, the more able you are to be okay when people give you rejections. It's like, if you take rejection personally, I was going to ask who takes rejection personally, but it's going to make what I say calling you out really bad. So don't tell me if you take rejection personally. I know I did. I took rejection really personally my first couple summers. So what do you start thinking? You're like, oh, these people are liars. Yeah, like, these guys have a freaking spider web right in front of their face and they were telling me they don't have bugs. Well, liars. I hate people. It's like, but that's because you start taking the rejection personally. So instead, what you need to do, like the more strong you become as an independent person, the more okay you actually are with people's objections. You're like, it's almost just like patting them. You're like, it's okay, dude. I understand. Who do you guys use though? And they're like, yeah, but we're just not really interested. It's like, I'm totally fine that you're not interested with this. But instead of just saying it as a way to respond to an objection, like you actually feel that way. Like, listen, this may or may not be a good fit for you. I don't even know. But have you guys ever considered, like, so I saw and then like now you're into the next thing. But it's because I actually feel that way though. So the more you work on becoming independent, the easier it actually is for you to serve other people. So really it is submitting, but it's also just like interdependence is service. And when you start getting 2 people or 3 people or a whole team that's serving each other, or a whole office that starts serving each other at a high level, it's like you guys will go have 300-400 account per rep averages if you want, if you can go do that and bond together. Anyway, okay, so let me just read this last thing, guys. I know we've got more people that probably want to say stuff, but so I just wrote a script for the leadership modules that are coming out here really soon. So if you guys are into, I'm trying to develop the highest level leadership training that is incorporated into a job experience. It's leadership development at the highest level disguised as managing pest control teams, basically. And so one of these scripts was from 7 Habits. Is I wanted to dive deeper into Viktor Frankl's story, which is why I've been able to like recite as much as I know about it. The way in which a man accepts his fate and all the sufferings it entails, the way in which he takes up his cross, gives him ample opportunity, even under the most difficult circumstances, to add a deeper meaning to his life. So like, the fact that you're choosing a job that's harder than what all your friends are doing right now, like who's got friends that are like on vacation right now or still finishing school? Or like they're gonna go, they didn't come out this summer because they wanted to go spend time with their families. Yep, okay, that doesn't sound like very tough or hard to me, right? Even under the most difficult circumstances, gives him the chance to add a deeper meaning to his life. It may remain brave, dignified, and unselfish. Or, so this is where we're talking about this continuum, right? In the bitter fight for self-preservation, he may forget his human dignity and become no more than an animal. So he even made this claim, which is really interesting, that not the Germans, not the captors who were beating and doing atrocious things to the Jews, but the people themselves in the death camps, the Jews in the death camps, many of them chose to live a life that was not full of integrity in the death camps because they did not take advantage of their suffering. They chose to become victims, which is like crazy. You're like, yeah, of course, this is the most victimized thing that has ever happened in the history of the world, right? And he was saying that like he did not feel that they acted in dignity because they allowed themselves to become victims instead of taking advantage of their suffering. That's really interesting to me. So he says, or in the bitter fight for self-preservation, he may forget his human dignity and become no more than an animal. Here lies, and so think about where you guys are at in your journey. If you guys are doing this job right, it should be really hard right now. And it doesn't matter if you're an experienced rep, a team leader who's done this for 10 years, or if you're someone who's out knocking doors for the first time. It should be just as hard for all of you equally if you're doing the job right in your respective sphere, okay? Here lies the chance for a man either to make use of or to forego the opportunities of attaining the moral values that a difficult situation may afford him. And this decides whether he is worthy of his sufferings or not. Such experiences tell us, sorry, this one is actually going to make me a little emotional because the reason why I ended up including this in here is because just some pressing things in my own life right now that I was there was a time about 3 months ago where I was just laying in bed every day because I was so physically ill, and there was a time last year mentally too where that was the case. But when I was reading through this, trying to get up every day and work a little bit, I was writing this script, and that line hit me more than probably many things have in my whole life, where it's just like, if I were to die tomorrow, I would not feel good about the last 3 weeks of my life that I've lived, where I sat in bed for way too long every day with the excuse that like my body hurts unbearably. And rather like, what would I actually want to be known for, be able to look myself in the mirror of and say is like the type of person who's worthy of their sufferings, right? That might mean different things for each of you. It might be only as deep for you as the rejection feels on the doors. It might be as deep even as maybe a family member suffering at home, or people going through hard times in your life, or you yourself going through some hard times. Whatever that is the case for you, is like that's the goal, is to become worthy of our suffering. So he says, here again, I'll just say that, here lies the chance for a man either to make use of or to forego the opportunities of attaining the moral values that a difficult situation affords him. And he decides in this whether he is worthy of his sufferings or not. Such experiences tell us that the human capacity to turn a personal tragedy into a triumph, to turn one's predicament into a human achievement, is what makes life meaningful and what gives us a sense of purpose. This capacity alone is what sets us apart from other animals and makes us uniquely human. There was always a choice to make. Every day, every hour offered the opportunity to make a decision which determined whether you would or would not submit to those powers which threaten to rob you of your very self. It's like every time, if you guys are new and you're thinking about going and sitting on the curb or finding a park or spending too long at a gas station, that's like a chance that's threatening to rob you of the thing that like makes you uniquely you and able to like go do something great. Threatens to rob you of your very self, your inner freedom, which determined whether or not you would become the plaything of circumstance. How bad would that suck if you just look back on the summer and you're like, how much did you do? Like, I only sold 300 accounts. I could have done 600 except for just the way area was managed. Your bank account doesn't care that you could have done that, right? Like, the people you're providing for in your family don't care. Or maybe they do, but like it doesn't change things. Become a plaything of circumstance, renouncing freedom and dignity to become molded into the form of typical inmate. Okay, again, I'm trying to actually find this and just not delay, so I keep reading stuff that's not what All right, last thing. This is the famous line that Covey says, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And this is the beauty about this job, is like every single day is just stimulus, 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 every day, hard, rejection, rejection, rejection. I hate you, get off my porch, my property, no soliciting, permits, do you have a permit? What are you doing? Get a real job. That's all stimulus, right? Between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in that response lies our freedom and our growth. When we are okay, this is the last thing, okay? This is the point we'll leave this with and then get out of here. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. All right, that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. Thanks for bearing with me today a little bit longer, guys. Again, role plays tonight, tomorrow morning. We'll figure that out, be a little flexible, but I just really want to express gratitude for you guys being here, for the sacrifice that you're making. Knocking doors is not that hard. Going door to door, doing this is not a difficult thing. But making a sacrifice to change you, to be who you need to be, to like reach your goals, to provide for your family, to get ahead, to like be the reason why your family is different generations from now. Like you draw out your family tree and you're like, where did everything change here? And you want to be the one where you can see it all change. Like, that's hard. So I know knocking doors is easy, but that part's hard. And if you're like me, then you're in that position. So there's nothing, it's no one else except for you that has to change to go do that. Okay, anyway, thank you guys for being here. And,